Brian, what makes a top movie in your eyes? What keeps your attention? What makes a classic?
So there's a lot of factors, obviously, and you hit on some of the points just right now, Peter, in why a movie separates itself, and it's so different than a TV show. And I think that a movie, you only have let's say 90 minutes to maybe 150 minutes to really make that impact.
Mm-hmm.
It's critical time, and for me myself, obviously, movie going and watching a movie, it is as subjective as you can get. A lot of people interpret things differently. A lot of people view things and they have emotional connections to those things. So I really appreciate that in a movie. But what really makes it a top movie is how it is able to capture the audience. I think that right off the bat, how the tone is set, how the mood is set, where the setting is, and how it relates to the overall storyline is such an intricate part in the first overall setting the foundation for the movie. So of course, like a great beginning, a great middle, and great end. That's just cliche, right? But let's go a little bit more in depth. And from my personal viewing experience, obviously, everyone already has their preconceived notions going into a movie. You've watched the trailer, you've been excited for a year. Maybe it's something that you just saw recently and a friend told you about. So you already go into the movie theater with those preconceived notions, and you already start to generalize a idea of what do you think the movie is going to be about, and or how do you think the movie is going to play out. So that already in itself is that connection. So then once you built that connection, it's boom, it's movie time. You're watching the movie, and like I just said previously, it's about how that tone is set, how that mood is set, and of course the acting. I mean, of course we need really good acting to allow the audience to really get invested in the movie and feel like they're part of the movie. I think most of my top movies that I normally enjoy, I really feel invested in it on an emotional level. I really grasp what the director is trying to portray. So that's number one. And number two, those are two really big items. And then the last one, I mean, it's fitting that this is the last really big thing that I also look about is the ending. I mean, the ending, similar to TV shows, but also different because the ending needs to wrap up. It doesn't have the amount of time that a TV show has to wrap up. Sometimes TV shows, you'll see it. It's the season finale, but it's the whole series or the whole season is the finale. It's that last chapter. What a movie has to do is they really have to wrap it up in a way that it doesn't feel rushed. It still takes the time to mend all the loose ends that the plot has given up. And I think that, when we think about even sports, I love to tie in sports, so I'll tie it in this aspect. When we think of some great games and you really, really look back at the highlights, you're like, no, that really wasn't a great game. It was a great ending, and a couple of standout ones that I have is Super Bowl 51, and it was the Patriots versus the Falcons. Patriots got off to a horrible start, down 28-3 in the third quarter. It was a horrible game, right?
Pretty much, yeah. It was boring.
But when most people recollect that game, they're like, oh shit, that was an amazing Super Bowl. That was a great Super Bowl because the ending was phenomenal. That last fourth quarter and beyond, I mean, it was phenomenal. And so that's why I think walking out of a movie theater, same thing. It could be a so-so movie, but let's say the ending just wraps everything. You feel so satisfied. You walk out of there and you're like, damn, that was a damn good movie.
Right.
You flip the roles. Let's say you have a great beginning and great plot, but the ending is just absolutely trash. You walk out of there with a whole different feeling. You kind of discard the fact that the middle part and the beginning was so great. So that's why I think for me as a moviegoer, I definitely pay very close attention to the ending and how that makes me feel. But those are some reasons why I know it got a little, detailed. Yeah. But those are just some of the things that I look for in a movie, in a top movie. And now I am very, very interested to hear from you, Peter. What are some things that you look for in a great movie, and what makes a great movie for you?
I couldn't agree more with pretty much everything you said. You eloquently said there. Thing is for me is, there's really just three things that that come down to it, and it's just kind of three different aspects for the movie. One is the unique story and writing, and sometimes it might not be original sometimes, but it's got a story. The story is believable. It's well written. It ties in loose ends, like you said, with the endings. It's got good dialogue. So, I mean, that's one part of it, the writing, the writers, who's writing it. You go in with the expectation, like you said, and, you get a good writer and you're expecting great things. Sometimes, that can affect the way you view a movie is your expectations going in. If it's a great writer, you're expecting, great things. If it's Shakespeare, you're expecting Shakespeare. You're not expecting, Scary Movie 1 or something like that. The expectations play a huge part in terms of how your viewing experience and everything like that. Number two for me is a great performance. You said this too, both in directing and acting. I think the way a director basically takes a movie, because when you get a script or something like that, you could take it so many different ways. Everyone has their own perspective on terms of how you take a piece of literature, which way we're going to take this. And then the same thing with acting. You see a character, you see the script in terms of, who this character is. How do you display that in a convincing way that gets the audience entertained, informs them about this character without, one thing I do say, if you can do it in a subtle way without having to spell it out too much to the audience, I think that's even better. More power to the people who put that together. I think that makes a really, really beautiful artistic movie. And then number three is entertainment value. At the end of the day, movie is entertainment. You're trying to spend your time, enjoy your time for a couple hours, and pass time. For me, in terms of the entertainment, the first watch feels when you first watch it. Is there a surprising element? Is it original? Like I said, with the writing, do you feel that suspense, that tension that the writers and the director and the actors are trying to portray? Do you feel that tension? If you do, that's awesome. That's exactly what they want you to feel. Or any other feelings, if you get emotional, crying, if you're laughing, any sort of emotions, if you're able to get that in that first watch, is perfect. And then also along those lines is rewatchability. One thing I'm going to leave out a few of these movies on my list is because they're great first watches. I see what they're doing. It's awesome movie. But if it's like on TV and it's just a random day, random Sunday afternoon, am I going to sit down and actually watch it no matter what part it is in the movie? I can say this in classic movies from whenever you want to say, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. If it's a classic movie and it gets to any part of that movie, I'm probably going to watch it because it's just such great performances, great writing, and just entertainment factor. It allows me to pass time in an enjoyable way. So those are my three things: unique story and writing, great performances in directing and acting, and entertainment value. Keeps me entertained for those first watch feels and the rewatchability factor. So I think we've laid out exactly what we're expecting from top movies. I'm ready to get right into our top five from the last.
Yeah, that was, I just have to add, Peter, that was excellently laid out too. All those points, I can't agree more with them. I think one thing that you mentioned that really stuck out to me was the rewatchability factor of it. I think that's so important too, because similar to like music too, right? How good does an album withstand the length of time? You have those classic albums that will, never ever go out of style. Those classic movies that you mentioned, from dating back to 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, all of that.
Timeless.
And I think although our list is only within the last 5 years, I still think that we have good enough grip to make a call on whether or not this will be a movie that I can still watch in the next 5 years and 10 years, and yeah, that's a huge importance. That's a very, very huge importance in the shelf life of it. But
it's not just a catchy pop song that you hear.
Yeah,
get addicted.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just a one-hit wonder, if you will.
Right.